This video is a re-upload of yesterday's video that got struck down for copyright within the first like 4 hours or something. It sucks, but it is what it is. I'm playing the game of YouTube and you know, they're always going to be playing it slightly better. This has happened for the second time after a season has finished, so I don't know if there's some pattern there or something, but I'm just going to use screenshots from the finale of season 14 just to be safe. And then if it gets taken down again, I'll put out an announcement and just make everything in the video screenshots, but hopefully this solves everything. Obviously, everyone knows that I don't intend to have my content replace the episode, and it's very transformative, but you know, copyright holders, they don't really care about that. It's whatever at this point. I've come to terms with it, and if I'm gonna start to need to use only screenshots, it's fine. It's just what's gonna have to happen. Welcome back to another Drag Race Quick Bite. I'm Jack, and we have finally made it to the finale after a brisk and really short season. In all seriousness though, I am happy that we made it to the finale of season 14, and I honestly wouldn't change the season for anything. I'm currently recording this video on Wednesday, 4/20, shout out Georges, so I haven't seen the finale yet, but at the end of this video, you will get my live reaction. But for now, I want to talk about the evolution of the finales and how they've changed over time for the better and for the worse. A finale for a reality competition show like Drag Race is a hard thing to pull off because you have to have so many things go right. You have to fully justify a winner in an edit, create something that's climactic and entertaining, and if it's a live finale, you have to naturally edit the segments to make sure that it kind of corroborates with everyone that was there. I don't think any Drag Race finale is unwatchable because it's the cap off to the season. People are going to watch it regardless, but there are some and some formats that I just think are better than others. So let's go through each format, starting all the way back in season 1. Seasons 1 to 3 of Drag Race had a very intimate and slow format that's kind of akin to an all-stars season. The budget basically didn't allow for these giant finales that we get now, and that's very understandable. These 3 finales give us the moments that we get in the semi-finale episodes where it's like the interview, and then they kind of talk in the workroom, final runway, get eliminated. You know, it's like everything that we see for the semi-finale was here in the actual finale. I honestly really vibe with this format because it feels like there's still one last leg of the race rather than some of the reunion finales where you're kind of just standing on stage, recapping, and then someone gets crowned. Like, it feels like up until the end they are still fighting for that crown. Also, with these first 3 seasons, it feels like their performance in the final episode still really counts. It's their last shot to show the judges why they should crown them, and even someone like BB, the first ever winner, really kind of came through in the last episode and I think won over Nina because of it. The crownings here are much more organic. We don't have months in advance to see how the queens are perceived on the screen and then crown accordingly. It's basically crown them as they performed in a competition from the judging panel. And you could say it has its negatives too. Someone like Tyra was loved by the judges but not really well received on screen, but the judges didn't really see the edit and they didn't see how the fans would like react to the crowning, so they crowned her and they got a lot of backlash. Maybe you don't agree with the wins, but I really feel like it's Rue's choice at that point, and I kind of like that. Nowadays, I know that all of the winners are really influenced by the people's perception online, but back in the day, the people who Rue crowned were like the people that Rue chose, so you know that Rue likes these people a lot. I just feel like in these first 3 seasons, it was an extra stamp of approval that they just don't get nowadays because of one main thing. I touched on this briefly in my Eras video, but I'll say it here again. Perez Hilton, who I don't really like very much, decided to expose the winner of season 3 because, I don't know, he was bored or something. Production was rightfully pissed and decided to change how they would crown the queens in the future. Basically everyone knows this now, but they crown each finalist and then they choose the actual winner post-production. It keeps from spoilers getting out, especially when they do larger finales, and I think it's a better choice overall, but again, the crownings are just a lot less organic. You just don't get the same moments anymore of someone like James collapsing on the floor from winning because the finalists don't know who wins until they watch the finale themselves. Don't get me wrong, the reactions on the side from all of the girls being together once again reuniting, they are so sweet and so amazing, but when you're crowned in that moment and you have your head in the game, it seems so much more entertaining. It's just a luxury that we don't get anymore. It sucks, but again, I think the change was for the better, but you gotta appreciate where we came from in the past. Moving on to the next format, we got seasons 4 through 6. I briefly mentioned it earlier, but the format of seasons 4 through 6 are a finale reunion style format. We basically get all the queens back together, everyone gets like a little moment to talk to RuPaul, and then they crown the winner. To me, I feel like this is the weakest format we had outside of another one that I'll get to, but that one was more for the circumstance that we were in. What I love about the reunions is that queens are not afraid to speak their mind, but when you're in front of a large audience of at least like 300 people, I feel like queens are a little more prone to censoring themselves. So when you have to resolve some of the most iconic conflicts of the show, like Sharon versus Fifi, but you do it in front of a live audience, obviously both of them are going to be a lot more civil than they could have been if it was just the queens and RuPaul in a room. To me, it's just a missed opportunity, and in its place we get a watered down resolution. Another small thing that I've noticed with this format is the fact that the queens who are the finalists don't really feel like they are the main attraction up until the end. They're given special entrances and the end is about them, but the whole middle portion is reuniting with all the other queens, so sometimes you forget, oh yeah, this is the finale and someone's gonna get crowned at the end because we're focusing on so many other people. But you can't deny how amazing the scope is to see all of these queens on this stage. It was amazing to see how much the show had grown from the little intimate thing with Santino and Merle Ginsburg just standing up and clapping a little bit to now having a full audience of people there to cheer on a winner. And the good part about the finales being filmed much later than the actual season is they could kind of play into what was good on the season. You know, something like Willem getting carried out onto stage by security, it's just like a crowd pleaser that's also going to be an audience pleaser at home. It feels rewarding as a fan to see so many other people in the room getting the references, really enjoying the queens the way you did, and overall just appreciate the show like you did over the past couple months or if you binged it the past couple days. It's less organic, but again, it's not bad in any way. You just trade out a lot of the conflict and the genuine reactions for more referential humor that's rewarding as a fan to watch. And like I said earlier, these seasons had the luxury of hindsight behind them. Choices of these finales could have just been made in accordance to how people reacted online to certain parts of the show, and I think that's what makes them great. The next format is very similar to the finale reunion, but it has one little thing added in that I think makes them so much better. To me, I really enjoy season 7 and 8 finale formats. The thing that differs from the past 3 seasons is the fact that they add musical numbers for each of the finalists in there. They were alright in season 7, but I think season 8 they really perfected them to make sure that they really showed off the queen's strengths. Each of the songs were specially written for each of these queens, and I think that's what makes them so great. Someone like Bob got to show off how confident they are, Kimchi got to flip the negative stereotypes that she touched on previously in the season into a really fun and empowering song, and Naomi had one of the catchiest songs in Drag Race history, something that even became viral on TikTok. These musical performance numbers got to show the strengths of the queens without jeopardizing any of them getting eliminated, something that we'll get into pretty soon. The numbers are just one last hurrah being like, oh look, I am talented, and then we're like, yes you are. And it just helps to keep the reunion fresh because the finalists are like the main attraction, something that I think kind of faltered in seasons 4 through 6. Every number was just the reminder that yes, this is the top 3, this is the main event, we're going to talk about all the other queens, catch up with them, but these are the 3 to watch out for. And you still get the positives of the seasons 4 through 6 finales. Very referential, very fun, becoming even more high budget, just overall a great time, and you can really tell by season 8 they perfected this format. So of course for season 9 they decided to switch it up. I'm going to talk about seasons 9 through 11 first because those season 12 and 13 had very similar formats. Obviously there are some things that are different about them. Like I mentioned in the Eras video, season 9 changed the trajectory of Drag Race as a whole. It's the most iconic finale, it's the highest rated, it's one of my favorites. These finales are no longer reunions, and I think that's a good thing because it could cut out a lot of the fluff, a lot of the things that maybe the fans don't care about that much, and just focus on the finalists who are about to compete for the crown. We get to catch up with the queens, see how they're doing after the show has aired, and just get like one last little thing of, oh, why should you win? And then we get to the lip sync for the crown, which was great in season 9, and that's it. I'm just kidding. I do like the lip sync for the crown format, but I do think it's also run its course. I know they switched it up a little bit for season 14, and I think that's a really good idea on their part. I praise seasons 1 through 3 for having like the last episode still being one final leg of the race, and you can kind of make the same argument here, but I think it's a little different, and I don't like how it's formatted here. Seasons 1 through 3, the final leg was still in the first part of the race, but the lip sync for the crown in seasons 9 to 13, there had been so much time in between, it wasn't like a final leg, it was like an extra lap that they tacked on at the end. Especially for season 9, where Peppermint didn't even know if she was actually going to be competing in a finale thing or if she got eliminated because they filmed both endings. So then you bring the queens back and you're like, okay, you guys are actually still competing, and they're like, okay, let's do it. And then seasons 10 and 11 happen and they kind of have an idea of what it is going into it, but then it becomes flanderized so fast. You could also say this for seasons 12 and 13, but here everyone has to have a reveal, and if they don't, they think they're gonna lose, and then it just becomes a show of reveals rather than a show of a good performance. Over the course of the lip sync for the crown, I think that there were 4 reveals that were really worth it, and then the rest, they were good reveals, but when you're expecting a reveal, that's when it's not that great, and that's what we get with this format. And then the other thing we get with this format is the upsets where frontrunners go home, and then people who don't have the best track record get to the top because they're wonderful lip syncers. Peppermint is one of the greatest lip syncers to ever grace the show, but as soon as she made it to the finale, we knew she wasn't going to win because her track record couldn't back her up. One of the queens could be edited to be the front runner for the whole season, but then their storyline is just killed off because they didn't perform great in a lip sync. There's so much risk involved with this format just for the chance of getting a TV moment, and I just don't think it's worth it anymore. And other random things with these finales, we get random moments where they're like paying tribute to something, or season 11's where a lot of it was random fluff, which I think was funny, but it ran so long. It just felt like they could never get the pacing down correctly for these formats because sometimes the first half would be all filler and then the second half would be all lip sync, but then sometimes they throw a lip sync in and then some interviews. It was just kind of messy. So I'm excited to see how they pace the season 14 finale with each of the queens getting a special performance all to themselves. But let's hop into the alternate dimension that is season 12. It's a fever dream, of course, but they really came through with the circumstances that they were under. For a finale that had to be created at the homes of all the queens and paced well, they did an absolute amazing job. I think it comes down to the fact that there were 3 rounds of performances to this, so it never really felt slow, and all of the rounds were different. Yeah, you could say that the close-up lip sync one was just promotion for RuPaul, but I still kind of found it entertaining, and then all the queens got their own special performance that was so themselves, which was great to see, and then we got a great finale lip sync. And then in between, we got the finale interviews, a wonderful tribute. It felt like it never slowed down, and I didn't know what to expect with a COVID finale, but they did a great job. And then we jumped to season 13, which I think is similarly really good, but it has some weaknesses that I think season 12 didn't. They tried to get back to normalcy as much as possible, going back to a main stage and everything, but without an audience, I just don't feel like it's worth it, and it just feels a little awkward. I just don't think the lip syncs were that monumental because we didn't get proper reaction outside of RuPaul and the people outside, but they were just kind of insert shots, you know what I mean? There was just no moment like Aja standing up and turning around and being like, oh my god, did you see that? Season 12's lip syncs worked because we knew there was no audience going into it, but season 13, you put them on this giant stage and they're kind of supposed to fill the space all by themselves. The anticipation of the audience being there and then not being there just kind of kills the energy of the room, which sucks because I don't think the lip syncs are that bad, and I think they just get a bad rap because people just don't understand how much an audience can affect a lip sync. Even something on the main stage has more energy because the judges and the queens behind them are all cheering, but here it's just the 2 queens and RuPaul in a room, and it's just, the energy's not great. Honestly, I think the better route would have just been to film it on the main stage with the judges like they did in the old days, and I think it would have probably gone over better in the eyes of the fans. But again, there are other great things about this finale that I love. We got some of the best runways back to back to back in a single episode. Another wonderful tribute that I almost cry at every single time I see it. And I just love the fact that Jada was the co-host. I really think they should do this every single season. Like a lot of season 13, I think the choices they made were interesting, and I think there was a lot of good intention behind it, but it just didn't translate as well as they thought it would. So that's the history of the finale formats. We get something very similar on all the international and all-star seasons to seasons 1 through 3, except they film each finalist winning. Often now they have the finale song grouped in with the crowning, which I think is really interesting, and I kind of vibe with it because it's like finale song, let's see who does the best from that and the rest of the season, and it's like a really, really good cap off. It's tough to pick my favorite format because I think they're all products of their time and I really enjoy all of them. I think season 9 is my favorite finale, but not my favorite format. Maybe season 8, I'm not too sure, but I think we'll just have to see if season 14 can really come through. I think it was a very great finale. I think they got the pacing down really well. The little performance right after all the 5 girls performed was cool. And then the tribute to Hot Chocolate, that was really cute too. Also, one small thing I want to say, Simone up there by herself without any guidance by Rue. It's giving host. It's giving host, and I think she did a great job, and you know, go check out my other video. I really only have 2 complaints. The first is small, and the second is a little bigger. The first small complaint is, why did they have the girls just kind of standing off to the side while Rue talks to them? Like, could they not give them chairs like they normally do? It was just like awkward staging. And second, and actually important, I feel like the songs could have been a little longer. Obviously, they were original songs and they were great. If the queens didn't want to go longer, they shouldn't. But I feel like they were a little hindered by the length of their performances. I feel like they could have done a little more if they were given more time. I'm not saying they have to write more lyrics, but giving them a little dance break in the song or just like an extra 10-20 seconds would really fluff out the time and make it perfect. But for what the performances were, I think they were wonderful. I'm gonna go through each of them individually, starting with Angeria, which I think was just quintessential Angeria, all the moves, all the references, super funny. Episode 1 started with a bitch track, so obviously if she ended with one, it would come full circle and it would be great, and that's what she did, and I think it was great. It was very referential, she had the comedy, and she has this confidence that I love to death. Her parents are so insanely sweet too, I just want to put that out there, but she said something in her interview that was like, I just am confident until it works out, or I'm delusional until it works out, something along that lines, and that's literally my motto for life, so I relate a lot to Angeria. Next up we had Bosco, who I think had my favorite outfit of the performances, hers or Daya's, I can't really, it's hard to pick, but Bosco's was pretty cool. And this is where I'm talking about a little more fluff. It felt like she had the reveal and then she walked forward and then we were done. Like I feel like she didn't really do enough, like she wasn't moving enough. It was beautiful. I think the reveal really paid off and it was kind of an homage to the whole burlesque thing, but stacking up to the rest of the performances, it just wasn't up to par. But I gotta tell you, that headpiece is so cool. Next up, we have Daya's performance, which I think is kind of in the same realm as Bosco's. The outfit was great, she was kind of connecting well with all the dancers, but it just kind of seemed like she was walking up and down the runway and didn't really do much outside of that. It might have been down to the outfit she had on, which was amazing. I love the flowing little tail things in the back, that was so cool, but it almost hindered her, I think. Like we saw her walk up and then down the runway and then bend over with the dancers, show off the tail and then kind of do it again. It was cool. It was really emotional and moving, but when compared to the top two, I understand why she wasn't chosen. And next we have Lady Camden, who I think had the best performance of the night. It is literally a Queen song and it pays reference to her falling on the runway. It is so smart. It is so funny. The presentation was amazing. If the first trained ballerina on the show was going to do a shoe reveal to ballet shoes, then the second had to do a reveal by spinning out of her outfit. It was gorgeous. I had no idea what was happening. So cool. And then we move on to Willow's, which going into the show, I knew was already going to make top two. We already saw her talent show. It's like, you see that and you're like, oh, now they have to do another performance at the end that's solo. Okay, she's gonna go to the top two. Willow is high concept, insane drag, and I love every second of it. And she's clearly a very sweet person, so when her song comes out and she's like, I hate people, I'm like, okay. Yep, I think it checks out. The outfit and reveal were really cool. The Denver girls really love their masks. I think Camden's was my favorite of the night, but Willow's got me to laugh the most. I think this is a really good idea for the finale format going forward. I think they just need to give them a little more time, like I said, but all of these girls really gave quintessential performances when it comes to their brand and their drag, and I absolutely adore that. The pace was really fast, but I think it works best for this type of finale. And then I think it was smart of them to put the Vegas performance and the tribute right before the top two lip sync because it gives people a little breather and just like, you know, gets the anticipation set up. And that top two lip sync, I really liked it. I don't think it's the greatest of all time, but to finish a season, it was very serviceable. Willow's reveals were so funny. Again, it's just so her. I love them to death. And Camden's, of course, paying homage to her best moment on the show. Both queens gave an amazing performance, and I honestly didn't know who it was going to. And then the winner is announced. Congrats to Willow Pill. I am honestly so happy that she won. There wasn't a second where she wasn't sharing her warmth and joy and intelligence on the screen, and I think that crowning her makes the season the most complete. Regardless of track record or wins or blah blah blah, we know that doesn't really matter on Drag Race anymore. I think Willow was just the most well-rounded pick out of the top 5. I'm going to save the rest of my thoughts for my review that's coming out soon, but for a finale, I really enjoyed this format and I think it's one of the best. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you soon with another video.